Hello everyone. So today we are going to study the poem Keeping Quiet, written by Pablo Neruda. So let's start without any delay. This poem highlights the importance of quiet introspection. That is the poem Keeping Quiet. It highlights the importance of quiet introspection. Now what is introspection? Introspection is the act of looking into yourself and questioning yourself so that you can understand the reality in a better way. The poet says that human beings have become very selfish, which has ultimately led to disastrous consequences. The poet Pablo Neruda, he has the opinion that human beings in today's world have become very selfish and self-centered, which has ultimately led to various consequences, mostly disastrous. He says that a moment of absolute silence would be very strange. So the poet says that if in today's world there is a moment of absolute silence, that is, there is silence all around, so it would be a very strange moment. Now, this strange word has been used by the synonym exotic in your NCERT book. So, exotic means strange. So, let's continue. He describes its two consequences. Fishermen would not harm the sea creatures, and that salt gatherers would get some time to look at their hard hands. Now, what happens? The poet Pablo Neruda gives two examples to clarify. He says that such a moment of absolute silence and inactivity would have two consequences. For example, that is, first one, the fishermen would not harm the sea creatures. You know that fishermen usually catch fishes in the sea water bodies. So for the first time they would not harm any sea creatures, any fish, whale in the water bodies. That's number one. And secondly, salt gatherers would get some time to look at their hard hands. Now people who gather salt from water bodies, they would get some time to look at their hurt hands. Now, when salt gatherers gather salt from the seas, their hands get hurt, and that is why you will see that their hands are usually red. So, the poet says that salt gatherers would also get some time to look at their hurt hands because there would be no activity and there would be absolute silence. However, he says that he has no association with death, nor does he want to promote total inactivity. The poet also clarifies that he has no intention or no association with death, nor does he want to promote total inactivity. That is, the poet also has no intention to promote total inactivity. Well, so the poet also talks about victory with no survivors. So what the poet wants to say with this phrase, victory with no survivors? So after a war, you know that there are two parties in a war and one party wins, that is the victory, and another loses. So the poet talks about victory with no survivors. That is, maybe after a war, a party wins. Well, but after that winning, that victory, there would be no survivors. That is, the other party and even people from the party that wins, many of them would be wounded or killed. So he mentions that. So that's why he says that such actions would not take place in the moment of stillness. So the poet advises that human beings should stop being selfish and self-centered. The poet advises that human beings should stop being selfish and self-centered. That's already mentioned previously. So the poet believes that the earth can better teach us that there can be activity under apparent stillness through examples such as the process of germination. Well, so the poet Pablo Neruda thinks that the earth can better teach us that there can be activity under apparent stillness. So when he talks about this moment of absolute silence and inactivity, he also says that he does not want to have any association with death, and he does not promote total inactivity. Rather, he says that there can be activity, it's possible even under apparent stillness. So how can the earth teach this to us? So he has mentioned that it can be done through examples such as the process of germination. In the process of germination, first of all, a seed is sown in the ground and it remains quietly for a number of days, maybe a weeks, right? Number of weeks. After that, it gradually, with time, it gradually starts growing as a plant. And after some years, if you go to the same place where you sowed that seed, you will find a great tree that may give you flowers, fruits, and all, right? So that's what the poet mentions about how the earth can teach us activity under apparent stillness. So at the end of the poem, the poet says that he will leave after counting up to 12 and then everybody should keep quiet. So what's the conclusion? Conclusion is that self-introspection is important to lead a better and peaceful life. Now another thing that I want to say, the significance of the number 12. Why does the poet say that he will count up to 12 and then leave? There are 12 months in a year. When you see the clock, there are 12 hours for a single time, and then if you double it, it becomes 24 hours. So these two are enough to explain this. With that, we come to the end of the poem. Now I want to say you something, that is poetic devices used in the poem. Many poetic devices have been used in this poem, Keeping Quiet, like in the line, in a sudden strangeness. Alliteration is the poetic device that has been used. Now I would like to explain you a bit about alliteration. What is alliteration? In the line, in a sudden strangeness, sudden and strangeness are two words that begin with the same letters S and the consonant letters, right? So that's alliteration. Well, after that, if we come to the line, perhaps the earth can teach us, as when everything seems dead and later proves to be alive. Well, so this line is actually a personified line. So the poetic device used is personification. Now let me say how. Personification, first of all, let's know what is personification. So when you give a living quality to a non-living object or thing, then it becomes personification. Like here in this line, perhaps the earth can teach us. Earth is non-living, but we're giving a living quality to it, that is teaching. Earth can never teach us, right? A teacher can teach you, your friend can teach you, but the earth can never teach you, right? But here it is written, the earth can teach us. So that's personification. Well, so with that we come to the end of the poem. I hope it's clear to you, and it was a simple poem. What I want to say to you is that self-introspection is really very necessary, and in today's time it's possible through meditation. That's why all doctors, scientists, everybody says that meditation is a great way to improve yourself, right? Because it helps you to improve your overall health. It improves your focus, concentration. So yes, if you want to take a practical lesson from here, meditate every day for 5 minutes, which would benefit you in the long run. Well, so with that we come to the end of the poem and meet you in the next video. Thank you all.